Hi there, Tamara Dorris, your real estate coach. And notice today, whoops, I have a little R on my shirt. That's not for real estate, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say it's for real estate. It's actually for one of my favorite wineries, Rehnquist Winery, which is up, Rehnquist Vineyards, which is up in Amador, close to where I am in Sacramento. Well, hour and a half away. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm here to talk to you today about opening up and attracting your ideal client. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, here's what we know. We know that when we feed a command to our subconscious mind, the subconscious mind does not have the opportunity to say yes or no. The subconscious mind goes with the strongest command that it gets. And not to get off on another subject, but this is why we sometimes do self-sabotaging behavior and things that we really wish we didn't do. And it's because we're getting an unconscious message from our unconscious mind that rattles off big fat lies like you're not good enough, you can never do that, you don't fit in, nobody likes you. And so if that message is coming through stronger than the one we're feeding it with our conscious mind or our superconscious mind, which is just all unicorns and rainbows, right? Superconscious mind just wants the very best for us, doesn't want anything negative at all, wants what's in our highest and greatest good all the time. And consciously, we want that too. So it would seem like a no-brainer that if our subconscious mind is 95 to 98% in charge of what we're going to attract into our lives, call into our lives, experience in our lives, that it seems that we can consciously take charge. But no, 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 because the unconscious stories that are below our level of awareness, that are always going to be limiting in nature, they're always going to be, not good. And it's not good in a bad way. It's not good because at one time in our life, in our individuation years, like when we were up until we were like maybe 5 or 6 years old, those beliefs kept us safe. Like, let's just use an example. You got up in front of your class and you told what I did last year at summer camp or whatever. You did something, and some kids started throwing spit wads at you, and you were just humiliated. So in order to cope with that pain, that discomfort, that humiliation, your brain created a neural pathway that said speaking in public is not safe. And what's the meaning of that? Speaking in public is dangerous. And I want you to think about all the things that happened to us when we were little kids and how easily we could have interpreted the message to be, it's just not safe to speak in public. It's just dangerous, right? I mean, I think that that's where a lot of our video fears come in. And it doesn't have to be any huge trauma, just that we were embarrassed or uncomfortable. Okay. So if that unconscious message became a command, if you will, that said, don't do that, not safe. Like danger, danger, Will Robinson, don't do that. That's very, very intense. And it has a lot of power with our subconscious mind. And it's way more powerful than your conscious mind saying, oh, let's do a bunch of videos and we'll have so much fun. Because the unconscious is going to go, nope, nope, dangerous. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So even though the superconscious mind, which really, really wants what's, for our best, it can't get through the clutter of the unconscious beliefs. Does that make sense? I know I said that fast and it was a lot, but just bear with me on this, because what we're really talking about is attracting our ideal clients. And the reason it's so important that I prefaced it with that is because what happens sometimes is my clients, we make up an ideal client sheet. This is what I want my ideal clients, which we'll do together in just a moment. But then they'll come back and they'll be like, well, I got a new client. And I'm like, yay. And they're like, but it's not ideal. Like, they're complaining about this and they don't want to price their home right. And they don't want a lockbox. And oh my God, they've got a cat litter box. It wasn't your ideal client. And that's because you weren't manifesting or attracting this client through the superconscious and the conscious minds. You were letting this get in the way. And so, part of my coaching, and you could just read my books, really talk about getting over and beyond and through the unconscious beliefs. And a lot of coaches, a lot of therapists, say that they can get rid of your unconscious beliefs, but you don't get rid of them. You disprove them, right? You disprove them. And you can only do that with your conscious brain. And here's the problem. We don't disprove them because we don't want to spend any time in the fire. We don't want that uncomfortable feeling. We don't want to speak in front of the classroom. We don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable and all those fears come back to us and we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And so we just skip it. And when we skip it, we can't examine it. We can't unpack it. And that's how we get through it. So anyway, just file that away. I'll do a whole video on that sometime. But for right now, when we're trying to attract our ideal client, if we haven't been super crystal clear that we can attract our ideal client, the unconscious brain is going to start giving you all these criteria, like no one like that's going to want you. You're not good enough. You're an imposter. Who would pay you that much? So that's why it's so important that you get crystal clear. So now let's do it together. I want you to think of a time in your past, I don't care how far back it was, when you had the very best client ever. I don't care, was it a couple, was it a single woman, was it a man, whatever it was, doesn't matter. But I want you to think of that client or that couple and give it a name. Okay, so from now on, that's going to be your ideal client. I just had I just had a client and her ideal client was Shannon. So whenever I talk to her, I'm like, how many Shannons you got going on, right? Because that is the name, the avatar that we're giving for all of her clients. Even if it's a man, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be Shannon. If they're ideal clients, they're Shannons. Okay? What was so great about that client? And just take a minute. If you need to pause me, but just take a minute and jot down what was so great about that client. Think about it. And those are the traits you want to attract. For example, did they trust you? Were they collaborative? Did they handle their stress well? Were they reasonable when it comes to pricing and, commissions and all that stuff? Were they reasonable? Were they compromising when it came to repairs and all the other things that go in there? Were they trusting when you said, we really should paint this room or whatever else? Like, this is really a good offer. Maybe you should take it. These are, to me, especially, when it comes to sellers that I want to attract, this is what I set out. I want them to trust me. I want them to be compromising on repairs and so forth. I want them to value me, right? Clients who don't value you are going to, how much do you charge? They're going to second guess your commission, and I don't play that game. So, and you shouldn't either. Now, I'm not saying you should never do favors for your friends and family. I'm just saying that I don't want to run my business when I was doing it full time. And even now, it's just like not even part time, like less than part time. I still don't budge. It doesn't matter because I know what my fees are, and I know what my time is worth, and I know what value I bring to the table. And you've got to know that too. And that's when you can't let these unconscious beliefs saying you're not good enough get in the way, because you are, right? Okay, so now that you have that, you have your client named and you have your traits of your client, next thing you have to ask yourself is, am I being worthy of that client right now? And I don't mean that in a you're not good enough way. I mean, if I want someone to work with me who is trusting and appreciates my value and compromising, is that the kind of person I'm being right now? Or am I going to the store and going, oh, you still owe me 5 cents to the clerk? Or am I being rude and rushing around or cutting in front of people on the freeway, right? Or am I being kind and compassionate and being the kind of client that I want to attract? Really important. We've got to be open to receive. It's kind of like, people say, like, for example, oh, I want a new mate. I want to attract a husband. Clear out a space in your closet. Don't put a bunch of books and stuff on the other side of the bed, right? You've got to make the space. And I mean, both physically and metaphorically. In this case, we want to make you the kind of person, the kind of agent that client will be attracted to. Because if she's got, or he, whatever, has all these great traits, they're not going to want to work with someone who's in scarcity. They're not going to want to work with someone who's complaining all the time. They're not going to want to work with someone who's a real cheapskate, right? So that's the second part of it. The third part is for you to envision that every single client or prospect that you have is that person, even if it's clear that they're not. You know, Wayne Dyer, who I had the pleasure of meeting one time years and years ago, once said, and he actually had a book by the name of it, once said that I'll see it when I believe it. And there's so much wisdom in those words. So in this case, let's look at it. If I look at this person and I know what I want to see in that person, I'm going to see it in them. That means I'm going to energetically, emotionally see it in them, even if they're not right at this present moment displaying that. I'm still going to see it in them. You know, and I've given over the years, my gosh, how many years? When I used to have my hypnotherapy practice, I had a little, I did some counseling for couples, for married couples, and it was always see in your partner what you want to see in them. See that, and then they won't disappoint. You know, and sometimes they do, and sometimes people split up, and oh well, I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about that. What I'm trying to tell you is more often than not, you can bring out the best in people by just seeing the best in them. I mean, and that's just a fact, right? We know that. We know that across so many studies and research projects that people will stand to the occasion. They will rise to the occasion. That's the saying. So just go ahead and see every client that you have, that even if they don't have that trait of your ideal client, just imagine as if they do. Just imagine if they do. Okay, so far, let's recap. So far, we've looked at our past client and found the favorite one, and we've given it a name. And you can give it a different name if you want to, but make sure you name your avatar. The second thing is we've written down all the traits of that person and what we want in that client. The third thing is we choose to see it in everyone that we're working with, because that's going to, the third one is we're going to be that person. The fourth one is we're going to see it in every client. And then the fifth one is taking action. And taking action is as much energetic as it is physical. What do I mean by that? Energetically, we want to take inspired action. Inspired action is what comes from like our superconscious, giving us these little hints, these little whispers, like go to this place or call this person. So we always want to pay attention to those. But another way that you can do it physically is ask yourself, where did you meet that ideal client before? You know, maybe it wasn't a Zillow lead. Maybe instead it was at pickleball, or maybe it was on a hike, or maybe it was at a party or whatever. But I'm not saying to recreate it identically, because sometimes we just can't, but consider the way that you met that first ideal client and find ways to work with that and replicate it. Like I asked myself, I know I have an ideal client for me, for my coaching, and I won't tell you what her name is, but whenever I have space in my program, or I'm trying to attract a few new of her name, I'll think about where would she be hanging out at? What Facebook groups would she be on? What activity would she be doing? What books would she be reading, right? Because the more in touch you are with her or him energetically, the more the path is going to be clear for them to find you, right? We're all about attracting and magnetizing the people that we want to work with. We're not about chasing them down, cold calling, knocking on doors. We're all about being, B-E-I-N-G, being the person who just people gravitate towards, right? So we want to be referable, we want to be magnetic, and we want to just be really, really heart-centered in our service. Okay, so if that sounds good to you, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and also if you're interested in talking about joining magnetic marketing, find a link below or take my free class or my $27 class and let's talk. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.